So I've done quite a few uh podcasts where I've done this. I have given an intro and you're going to see me go back and forth because I have my phone over here and all the things. So oh, hi Emily. Oh, so good to see you. You likely know all of this already. So but happy to have you here, and if you have any questions, of course, put them in. Um but I really wanted to do something on my own page so that it lived somewhere that I could point people to that I'm like, yes, this is it. So this is it. And I'm so excited to share it with all of you. So what is human design? I talk about it a lot in posts and different things, but you may be somebody who's like, but I don't actually understand it. Like, I need a little bit more. Great, let's talk about it. So human design is essentially a tool that helps you understand who you are at your core. So, how I explain it is that it's a blueprint of who you are. It's your authenticity, it's who you are at your core that you're meant to express and live in the world. But maybe we have all taken on conditioning throughout the years that from childhood, from parents, from caregivers, from friends, from all the different places, from society that says you're supposed to be a certain way. And this gets to be the thing that gets to validate and confirm what you likely already feel in your bones and what resonates for you, but maybe you didn't feel like it was right. Because, right, if I just take an example, myself and Emily are projectors, and we live in a world that says you need to go, you need to push, you need to hustle, you need to force, you need to be busy, you need to work long hours, you need to do all these things in order to be successful, in order to have the money you want, in order to have the life that you want. Well, that's not actually how we do it. That's a great path for us to just nosedive into burnout, into exhaustion, and into a bunch of health issues because we don't actually have sustainable energy. And so, this is something that I know I have come up against a bunch of times in my life of burnout and different health issues that I now understand and have been able to rectify. So that's kind of what it is. It's just this map that you get to use and you get to course correct and you get to experiment with to say, does this feel good to me? And if so, let me try it out. And it's all about gaining awareness. I am a big proponent of awareness. Once we have awareness around something, it's hard to not see it. It's hard to then go back to the way we were doing it before. And it becomes easier to do the things that maybe felt hard to begin with, right? If you are somebody who needs to rest more, and now you have that understanding, and you go through life and you're pushing and you're all these different things, and you're burnt out all the time, you can get kind of bitter at that, and you can get kind of frustrated. And so the next time you're like, you know what? I'm going to take a nap today. I'm just going to see how this goes. I'm going to take a nap, or I'm going to go to bed early, or I'm just going to like not do this extra thing, even though everybody wants me to and they expect me to. I'm not going to do it because it just doesn't feel good and I'm tired. And that's what I love. The awareness makes it so easy to then make changes, also to have the courage to risk, to try something different. So that's why I love human design, because it's not a belief system. It's just something that gets to tell you, hey, try this out and see if it works better for you. Likely it already resonates with you. I mean, some of my favorite things is having sessions with people and they're like, oh my gosh, like I just feel so seen and I don't know you. And I'm like, I know, isn't it the best? Like, now I'm this unbiased person that's telling you to do what you already feel is good for you. And so then it gets to be this like extra validation and this extra confirmation and this extra permission to be yourself. And like if we could all just give ourselves and each other more permission to be ourselves, this world would be such a happier place, I feel. So some of the things that it pulls in are astrology, the chakra system. It pulls in the Kabbalah, it pulls in the I Ching, and it also pulls in things like biomechanics, astronomy, and genetics. So it's very comprehensive, which is why sometimes when you run your chart, so how to run your chart. You need your birth time, your birthplace, and your birth location, birth time, birth date, and birth location in order to run your chart. And you can run your chart on so many different places. You just Google free human design chart and a bunch will pop up. Jovian Archive, My Human Design, Genetic Matrix, like there's a million. And you just put in your information there and it's going to pop out this chart. And birth time is important. So if you are texting your mom or you're calling your mom and you're like, hey, when was I born? I mean, your mom was kind of busy when you were being born. So she may not have like taken note exactly when you were born. So take a look at your birth certificate, because 10 minutes I've seen 10 minutes change a chart, and I've seen 15 minutes change big parts of a chart. So make sure you're getting it as exact as possible so that you're getting the most accurate information for you possible. I also love it because you don't have to take a quiz. I mean, I have taken the Enneagram quiz 3 times and I've gotten something different every time, which now I look at my human design chart and I'm like, oh, well, that makes so much sense. Like, I get it. I see where that happened. Like, I see how that's happening. And so, like, please don't make me take a quiz, because I'm just going to get a different answer and I just want something easy. So that's what I love, that part about it too. And I know I was saying something before and now I can't remember what it is. So it is what it is. But it's meant to be an experiment. It's meant to be something that you take and you try out and you see what resonates. This is not something that you're meant to take and you're meant to live it all to a T. If that feels good to you, awesome, do it. If it doesn't, awesome, don't do it. Like, this is your life. Nobody gets to dictate it but you, unless you allow other people to do that for you, which I'm sure we've all been there and we've all lived that, and it's not as fun to do that either. So that's kind of what human design is. The thing I'll say too, and I'm going to pull up my chart at some point so I can kind of walk through things, I think, is that it can look really complicated, the chart. Like, there's, depending on where you get it, there's all this different information about things. There's this body graph with these shapes and these colors and these lines and like, what the heck? I ask that not deter you, because it's such a treasure trove of information that you can lose so much if you're just like, you know what? I don't even know. Thank you. We're going to start breaking it down piece by piece. So if you have your chart, grab it. If you don't, go run it. And what I really want to do today is just really go through the 5 types. So there's 5 types within human design. So if we're looking at a chart, it's going to say type or it's going to say energy type. And that is this is how I see it, as the first entry point into human design. That is the foundation of who you are. So there might be other things that you want to start with that you're like, ooh, but this like sounds more exciting, or this looks cooler. Like, let's start here. But if you don't have a firm foundation on your energy type, then it's going to be difficult for everything else to fall into place. However, if you live your energy type, everything else kind of falls into place. So it's all about taking things piece by piece and just not, I mean, some of you are going to want to do this, but not fully immersing yourself in it and then getting overwhelmed and walking away. So, okay, energy type. So there's 5 energy types. And again, these are all of our kind of like archetypes, if you will, within human design. So the first one I'm going to talk about are manifestors. And manifestors are about 9% of the population. And they have an interesting way of energy. So I say that because they don't have the ability to have sustainable energy. However, they do get these big urges to go do something, to create something, to go somewhere. And with that urge comes all the energy to do the thing. But what manifestors have to understand, that they're here to get things started. They're here to start things. They're here to blaze the trail for the rest of us. They're here to get things started. They're not necessarily here to finish things. So they're going to find that their urges are going to fade before they're done with the thing that they started. And that can be very frustrating or very angering to a manifester because, again, we live in a world that says you need to be a good finisher. If you start something, you have to finish it. You have to force, you have to push, you have to keep doing. And that can be pretty damaging to a manifester because they're not necessarily here to finish it. They're here to get it started and then pass it off to the rest of us for us to finish or for us to do the day-to-day and not for them to have to do it. And so it's a learning that, and when you feel that fade happen, manifestors, to not get down on yourself, to not be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? It's to say, okay, got it. This is a clue. Okay, my energy is waning, meaning likely whatever I'm doing, it's time to find another person to help me with it or to pass it off to or whatever. And I need to start looking at rest. Now, we all need rest, but some of us need rest more than others. Manifestors, your rest is going to come in waves. So when you find yourself at the end of this urge wave, you need to allow yourself to rest in whatever that means for you. So everybody take note of this. Rest does not equal taking a nap or going to sleep or doing nothing. Yes, it can, but it doesn't have to. And it's not always that. It can be going for a walk. It can be working out. It can be whatever re-energizes you, whatever fills you up, whatever makes you feel re-energized. That's rest for you. So allow yourself to go into that rest for yourself, because if you don't go through this cycle, manifestors, then you'll find that you don't get all of these urges that maybe you used to or you're used to getting. So it's allowing yourself to go through this energetic cycle of massive energy, bursts of energy, and then rest and recuperate and re-energize and then start the process all over again. If you follow your urges, they're going to take you for where you're meant to go. But you have to allow yourself the time and space for that to happen. So again, it's all about playing with it. It's all about seeing what feels best for you, what works best for you, and do that and just play with it and see what happens. So what's also tied to energy type is strategy, not self-theme, and signature. So the strategy, which is the thing that opens up the energetic lane between us and others, for a manifester is to inform. So they're truly the only type that can basically go out and initiate. The rest of us really need to wait for something to happen in order for us to be energetically correct to move forward into the world. So manifestors, when you decide on something, when you're like, yes, I'm going to go do this thing, or yes, I'm going to go to this place, or I'm going to create this thing, or whatever your urge is telling you to do. Once you've made the decision, your strategy is to inform. So some of the biggest conditioning for a manifester is that you need to shrink yourself in order to make others feel comfortable. You need to apologize for your behavior. You need to essentially ask for permission to live your life. That's terrible conditioning for you because you are here to get it started for the rest of us. And so if you're always asking for permission, the rest of us are like, no, don't do that. But then once you do it, we're like, oh yes, can we help you? And so your strategy to inform is all about, once you've made that decision, that you then inform or tell the people that it's going to impact what it is that you're about to do. So it's not saying, can I do this thing? It's not saying any of that. It's saying, I'm doing this, full stop, end of sentence, and move forward with life. yes, when you start doing this, it likely is going to trigger the F out of a lot of people that are used to you being in a certain way and used to you being a certain way. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That likely means you're doing it right. And now you're starting to shed and decondition and step into you being you. So what this can look like, and I love this analogy for manifestors, and it tends to really land for people, and this came from Jenna Zoe, is that manifestors, think of yourself as a train conductor. So the train conductor doesn't go out onto the platform and say, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Okay, I'm going to make my train go to all these different places. Because likely most of the people are now upset because their likely 30-minute train ride is now 6 hours because you're making the train go to all these different places. Not helpful, right? But when you go out onto the platform and say, hey, oh, sorry, nature interruption, bald eagle, I think is hunting, like landed. Sorry, okay, focus. The train conductor goes out onto the platform and says, this train is going from New York to Boston. If Boston is where you want to go, this is your train, get on, we're leaving in 10 minutes. You get back on your train, you leave in 10 minutes. Everybody's so happy because your people got on the train with you because that's where they want to go. That's how you're meant to live life. You're not going to be it for everybody. Not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody's going to be your people. That's something that you're just going to have to come to terms with. You will be liked and accepted. I know that's massive conditioning. That's all you want. You find that by you living as you. So it's looking at how can I inform more in my life and not less, and not ask for permission. And also for anybody who has a manifestor in their life, they feel super supported when you inform them. So if you normally get home from work or wherever around 4:30 in the afternoon. You decide this day that you're going to go to the store. You want to stop by the store, get some stuff, and then you'll be home. You're like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm only going to be, 30 minutes late, not whatever. You get home and your partner or whatever is like, where the F have you been? I've been waiting for you. I had all these things planned. You're normally home at this time and now it's 5 p.m. and like, what the F? And you're like, oh my gosh, I just stopped at the store to get some stuff. I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. But had you then, before you left, said, hey, I'm stopping at the store, I'll be home 30 minutes late, likely that all would have been missed. So it's just learning all the little intricacies when it comes to each of the types that you are and that the people in your life are, so that you can fully support them as them and not expect them to be like you. Because that's, again, what we tend to do so much of. We just expect people to be like us. Oh, you can't see other people as clearly as I can? Well, that's weird. It's not weird. It's just we're all different. So that's your strategy to inform. Your not self theme. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. The not self theme is the signpost that says, hey, you're out of alignment, you're out of design. Take a step back and see where you're pushing, where you're forcing, where you said yes to a no, where you're trying to be somebody you're not, where you're maybe not resting. For a manifestor, it's anger. And anger can also look like irritation, rebelliousness, right? I'm not going to ask for permission because when I do, they ask a bunch of questions, they tell me no. So I'm just not going to say anything. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than for permission. Very manifestory. And also passivity and accommodation, because you really want to be liked and accepted. So you're going to people please in order to do that. And you're going to shrink yourself, but that doesn't feel good. And then the signature is the signpost that says, hey, you're in alignment, you're in design, congratulations, keep going. And for a manifestor, that is peace. So it's that feeling of inner peace. That's what you're searching for. So you want to understand when you're feeling both of them. Because when you're feeling your not self theme, you want to take a step back from that and say, okay, what led me to here? What got me here? Because I want to do less of that. And then when you get into your signature, you want to take the step back and say, okay, what led me here? Because I want to do more of that. And so that in a nutshell, which I maybe it's a pretty big nutshell because I kind of got away with myself there, is a manifester. So again, they're 9% of the population. They're not, yes, it's a lot of people in the grand scheme of things, but they're not the majority. And so again, we can feel like that's wrong. Like you're not meant to be that way. You're meant to be more like likely a generator or a manifesting generator. Okay. So let's talk about generators. Generators, I love you so much because I partly want to be one of you, but you guys are 35% of the population. So generators are one of the two types that has the ability to have sustainable energy. I say ability because it's not, you don't always have it. It depends on what you're feeding your body. Yes, actual food is going to play a part, but more so, what are you feeding your body in the sense of time and energy? How are you spending your time? What are you engaging in? When you engage in things that you love and that light you up, it gives you energy. You can do it for hours without getting tired. But when you're doing things that you don't really want to do, but you feel like you should, it takes energy from you. It depletes you. So if you're a generator or even a manifesting generator watching this right now and you feel super depleted, it's time to take a really good look at what are all of the things that you have committed your time and energy to, the house things, your life things, work things, family things, kid things, whatever. What are the things that you've said yes to? And then what are the things going through each one of those on the list? What are the things that you actually want to do? And what are the things that you actually don't, but you said yes to anyway? How many of the things on your list are no's? Because if you have so many no's, you're not going to feel great. All this isn't going to make a lot of sense to you because you're like, I don't feel sparkly. You're meant to be sparkly. You're meant to be super energetic. Your aura pulls in people, opportunities, synchronicities to you. If you're allowing yourself to live in the yes, if you're allowing yourself to do the things you love that light you up. But if you're not, then you're essentially repelling those things away from you. So you want to really take a look at how much of my time and energy are engaged in yeses and how much are they engaged in no's. Not helpful to be in the no. And how do you know what's a yes or a no? Great question. You have a visceral response within your body that tells you yes or no. Your visceral response is either feeling, so you feel it in your body. It's sound, so you say it or you make noises or something. Noise comes out of your mouth. Or it's movement. So whether you're nodding or you're shaking your head or you're leaning in closer. These are the three ways your visceral response can show up. Now, if you're not sure what your visceral response is, dear generators, it's time to take a look at what it is for you. How do you do this? Great question. I love that. I love saying this so much to generators and manifesting generators because you know what? Open-ended questions are not helpful for you. They're not going to lead to any good places. How many times have you had the what do you want for dinner conversation? And how many times has it landed in frustration, right? There's nothing for your body to respond to with what do you want for dinner? But as soon as somebody says, let's get pizza, you're like, nope, I don't want that. They're like, okay, let's get Chinese. And you're like, nope, don't want that either. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, obviously you care. So what do you want? I don't know. I don't care. You pick, right? Like so frustrating. But see, you need something, a yes, no, this or that, multiple choice type of question or statement for your body to activate the visceral response, your yes, no response. This is how you're meant to go throughout the world. This is how you know what to do. This is your strategy. Your strategy, again, the thing that opens up the energetic lane between you and others in order to create ease and flow versus resistance and rejection, is to respond. So like I said, manifestors are truly the only ones that can really go out and initiate. The rest of us need to wait for something. You need to wait for your body to tell you, yes, I want to do this. Because with a yes comes all the energy to do it. But if it says no and you're like, but I got to do it anyway, it's what takes energy from you. It's why it becomes really difficult and it makes it really hard. So get in touch with how your body says yes and how it says no, because it's going to lead you on the path you're meant to be, to where you want to go, to achieving your dreams and all the things. But you also have to get really comfortable with not needing to explain or rationalize why it's a yes or no. It just is. We're not meant to make decisions from our brain, from our head. We're meant to make it from our body. And so when you become really okay with that, everybody else starts to just be like, okay, well, this is just how she makes decisions, right? Can you think of somebody, or even if you can't think of an actual person, a character in a movie or a show that they're like, oh, they have the best instincts or the best gut or the best intuition or the best, insert whatever the thing is here, right? And so we just follow it. We don't ask why, because there's no reason why, right? It's their gut, it's their instincts, it's their intuition. There's not really a reason for behind it. It's just is. That you have that at your fingertips too. And so it's allowing yourself to cultivate that you can become that person that then gets to show that for others to say, this is possible for you too. And the other thing I'll say about generators is that you guys come here wanting to help others. And by you feeling that deep in your soul, you tend to put yourself last or second, at least. That's not how you help people. You actually help people by doing what you love, because when you do what you love, you not only create energy for yourself, but you also overflow and fill up all of those around you. As somebody who does not create energy, this is so true. I have been with really aligned generators, and it feels so good to be in their energy. I want to be with them. I want to be around them. And it's not even that they give me energy. It's just that it feels good to be around them. I've also been around very misaligned or unaligned, or however you want to talk about it, generators. And I feel worse. I feel depleted. I feel run down. I feel exhausted, and I don't even do anything. And I'm like, I actually don't even have the ability to create energy, and I'm feeling even more tired with you. So I think I need to distance myself because this doesn't feel good. We can feel it. You will impact us greatly. So look at how can you put yourself first with the understanding that you actually help others when you do that. Okay, so you're not self-theme generators. Again, not self-theme being the signpost that says, hey, you're out of alignment, you're out of design, take a step back and see where you're pushing, you're forcing. Where you said yes to a no is frustration. And frustration can also look like feeling uninspired, feeling blah about life, feeling dull, because, right, you're meant to be sparkly. And it can also be this frustration of energy or this pent-up energy. All of these are your indicators that you are out of alignment, you are out of design. It is time to take the step back and see what led you there. Now, your signature, the thing that tells you you're in alignment, is satisfaction. So it's that feeling of being satisfied, that feeling of being fulfilled. That's what you're searching for. When you feel that, it's so important for you to take that step back and say, okay, what got me here? Like, how did this happen? Because this feels freaking amazing and I want more of it. And you're meant to have more of it. We're meant to be more in our signature than our not self theme. But we've at some point just accepted that our not self theme is normal. It's not normal to be frustrated all the time. It's not normal to be irritated all the time. That isn't normal. The normal would be feeling peace and satisfied and fulfilled. That's what we're searching for. That's what we want. So that's what but take note of that, generators, so that you can come back to it again and again. Okay, moving on. I think this is going to be longer than I anticipated. Okay, manifesting generators. You guys are also 35% of the population. And you also have the capacity to have the most energy of all of the 5 types. So the majority of the world has sustainable energy. 70% of the world has this sustainable energy, has this capacity for sustainable energy. And 100% of us think that we're supposed to have it too. So there's 30% of us that really don't have this ability, but we can force ourselves into it. We can trick ourselves into it, which is when we tend to get a lot of health issues and it's not great. Like we burn out our adrenals, or we have a lot of reproductive organ and digestion issues. Like a lot of things come up as our indicators that it's not going right. We're not operating optimally. Like it's time to take a look at that. Okay. So manifesting generators, you guys, if you haven't guessed it, are a mixture of a manifester and a generator. So go back. If you're a manifesting generator, I'm going to talk about a few things that are specific to you, but also please go back and listen to the manifestor and to the generator side, because those are very part of who you are also. With the same strategies and the same not self themes and the same signatures. And you might ask or think or say, hey, I'm a manifesting generator, but on my chart, it says my strategy is to respond, and it says my not self theme is frustration. So do I really have the manifestor ones too? You tell me, because every manifesting generator I've talked to resonates with both. So I think it would be silly to not talk about both if you have both energies inside of you. So what can be helpful though as a manifesting? So I said you have the capacity to have the most energy. You can't really have too many things on your plate. We hear that a lot, right? You have too much on your plate. As a manifesting generator, and even a generator to a certain extent, you can't really have too much on your plate. However, with a caveat, you can have too many no's on your plate. If your plate is created of all yeses, you'll have the energy to do it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But if your plate is made up of quite a few no's, then yeah, it's going to feel pretty hard and you likely have too much on your plate. So again, it's looking at what have I committed my time and energy to, and how many of those things are truly yeses, and how many of those things are actually no's. And get rid of the no's, but not instantly. Create an exit plan to move the no's off your plate. The exit plan could be a day, it could be a month, it could be a year. It doesn't really matter. But as you're creating the exit plan, you're creating the awareness, and therefore you're creating space. So get clear on what the things are for you so that you can then move forward in a way that feels the best for you. Now, manifesting generators, I love you guys so much. So you guys have what I call shiny object or squirrel syndrome, where you have lots of interests and they may not look like they go together. They're varied and they change, maybe very often. And this is supposed to be true. This is it for you, right? So you have all of these interests. You have these different energies. The manifestor energy is very quick. It's very spontaneous, where the generator energy, it's not slow, but it's steady. And so it's understanding, and again, checking in with your visceral response of, am I interested in this thing? Yes, you're meant to have all these interests. Allow yourself to have them. Go into them, get what you need to get out of them. But you will also find, like a manifestor, your interest will then fade. And your interest might fade in days, but it also might fade in like never, right? Like it may be there forever. And so it's getting in touch with, am I still interested in this thing? Do I still want to do it? Because when the energy's gone, it means you got whatever you needed to get out of that thing, the skill, the experience, the contact, the whatever. So it's allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to step away from things when they no longer serve you. But it's also getting clear of, am I stepping away from this because it no longer serves me? Or am I stepping away from this because of resistance, or because I'm scared of what might happen, or what will happen, or what won't happen? It's getting clear on what are the true intentions behind it. And it's, again, going through and experiencing things and experimenting that we truly learn what is truly for us and what we just said wasn't for us. And we're using it as an excuse, because all of human design can be used as an excuse. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad, just like anything else. And so this is why it becomes so important to truly understand you, so that you don't use it as an excuse. Or maybe you use it as an excuse once, but then you don't do it again. It's getting in touch with you so that you can do you. Okay. So also, manifesting generators. Have you ever had somebody tell you need to focus on one thing? How did that feel? Did that not feel very good? Because it's actually really good for you guys to multitask. You can do multiple things at one time and get it all done. And that likely feels better for you doing it that way. And so it's not telling yourself you're doing it wrong and that you need to focus on one thing. It's saying, hey, you know what? It actually feels better if I'm doing emails and watching a webinar at the same time. That feels better. I'm still getting all the content, and it just feels like things are moving, right? Allow yourself to do multiple things at one time. See how it feels, see how it goes. Like, allow that to be true for you, and allow people to tell you to focus on one thing and say thanks, but no thanks. Like, that doesn't work for me. I can't tell you how many times as a projector, which we'll talk about next, I've had to say like thanks, but no thanks to advice, whether solicited or not, whether coming from a coach or from a friend, because I know me so well now that I can say, no, I'm not going to do more. I know where that leads. That's why I left corporate, because my health was way too important to me and it wasn't the life I wanted to live. I loved the people I worked with. I miss them a lot, actually. But that container wasn't right for me. And so I left to do my own thing. And now I can really steadfast stand in my own power and say, no, thank you. And, go off and do things that people tell me to. But it's all about coming back and saying, you know what? I thought that was going to work. It didn't work. Now I have more information for the future. It's the best thing we can do for ourselves. So manifesting generators, go rewatch the manifestor and the generator, because that's also true for you too. And to go with the not self themes and the signatures, it's all true. And I will say, I'll end it on this for manifesting generators, that you can be more of a manifesting generator, or more of a generator, manifesting generator. And it just depends on if you're looking at your body graph, you may have to Google what all these things mean. But if you have your sacral center connected to your throat center, in some way, shape, or form through a channel, then you're more of a manifesting generator. So those urges are going to be big for you, the informing, the doing the things. Oh, good question, Lynn. Okay, hold on. And then if you don't have your sacral connected to the throat, you're more of a generator, manifesting generator. So I love you guys so much. Okay, I'm going to answer this question and then I'm going to move to projectors. So what about emotional strategy? So are you talking about emotional authority, like inner authority saying emotional? Because there's no strategy within the 5 types that's emotional. There's to inform, to respond, to wait for an invitation, and then to wait a lunar cycle. Those are the 5 strategies. So are you inner authority? Yeah. So I'll briefly answer this, but inner authorities is like a whole another topic. There's 7 different inner authorities, and inner authority is how we best make decisions. So inner authority being emotional, that's 50% of the world. And you can and may have multiple authorities, multiple ways of making decisions. So Lynn, I know you're a generator or a manifesting generator. I can't remember which one. So for you, I just know right off the top, if you're emotional authority and you're a generator or manifesting generator, you have 2 ways of making decisions, and they're both super important. So it just depends on what's happening in your chart. But to answer your question, to actually answer your question, MG, okay. So to actually answer your question, anybody who has emotional inner authority has to wait at least, likely, 24 hours before making bigger decisions. So yeah, I know that's like a hard thing in this day and age to say, no, I can't tell you right now I need a day. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? You can't have a day. You can have 2 minutes. Like, you make the decision. If anybody says that to you, if you're emotional authority and you're not super in tune with it yet, and they're like, no, we need to know in 10 hours, or we need to know by the end of the day, you can say, thank you so much. It's a no, because I need at least 24 hours to flow through my wave, which I'm going to talk about. And if you can't give that to me, then this isn't going to work. So thank you so much for making this easy. It's a no. So emotional authority, you have this emotional wave about these bigger decisions. So you flow through a yes, like, oh my gosh, this is the best decision. I can't wait. This is going to be so great. I can't wait. It's going to be so good. And my whole life's going to change. I can't wait to get started. Let's do it right now. And then you flow into the no of it. That's like, oh, but can I do it? Is this the right decision? Crap. Did I just did I just ruin my life? Can I afford this? Is this the right thing? I don't know what to do. And then you flow into your neutral. And you know you're in neutral because you're not in the yes of it and you're not in the no of it. And you may flow to the no and then to the yes. It doesn't really matter. But this wave is super important because it helps you not only get clear on your emotions, on how you feel about the decision, but it also helps you in getting on divine timing. So if you feel like it's a yes at the beginning and it ends up being a yes at the end, and you said yes at the beginning, it may not flow as easily as if you had waited the 24 hours or however long your wave takes and then said yes. Because usually there's things that need to fall into place that we don't know about. We can't know, we can't see. Doesn't even matter for us to know. We just know that I need to gift myself this. And you know what I find? Because I have emotional authority too. And it's been so interesting, and I actually love it because it gets to weed out people so easily. I'm like, oh, you can't give me 24 hours? Great. I'm not even going to waste my time on this. Like, yeah, I'm bummed. I really wanted to do it, but thank you for making this decision so easy for me. It's a no. So it can be very difficult to start following because of the way that we live in this life and society especially, poor reflectors, but it's the best thing ever. And you may find that you want to wait through your emotional wave to even respond to an email. So it's just like understanding you and then getting clear on your wave. I find for me, because if you have emotional authority, you also have an emotional wave. There's 4 different emotional waves you can have, and we're not going to get into that. Didn't even mean to spend this much time on this question, but it's like, I feel so strongly about us all understanding the emotions that we have, because I have had a very interesting experience with my own emotions. And so now understanding them, my life is so much easier. Like things are I'm so much healthier and things are able to flow so much easier. And so if you have so I find for me that I have my emotional wave, and that when I have a decision to make, a new wave gets kicked off. It's like my decision-making wave. And my decision-making wave tends to last, I mean, it really depends. Sometimes I can flow through it in like 4 hours, and sometimes I flow through it in 24. But I tend to always give myself 24 hours before making or giving my response, so that I can be truly sure and not feel like I'm rushing it, and just having that space to be able to have the time to make that decision. Before I followed my emotional authority, I would jump into saying yes. Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh. I did that so much too. I'm like, damn it. Why did I say yes to this? Like, this is not fun at all. Or saying no to something really quickly and then being like, then regretting it and being like, oh man, just like super FOMO about missing out on something. And it's like, dang, why didn't I say yes to that? Like I should have. Like I know of one instance in particular. I was studying abroad in Italy. Everybody went to Cinque Terre and I didn't go. And I regretted that. And I was like, dang, oh, there's like this really weird bug in here. Okay, not gonna look at it. And I really wish I would have done it, but I just like, I said no instantly. And yeah, anyway, so good. Okay, so projectors, and I feel very strongly about this because I am a projector. We are 20% of the population. And like I said and have said, we don't have the ability to have sustainable energy. So if you're a projector and you're trying to keep up with the conventional, traditional way of work, you're likely burnt out. You likely don't feel great all the time. You likely get to the end of the day feeling exhausted and like you just want to zone out. That's such a great indicator. You're so welcome, Lynn. It's such a great indicator for a projector. If you get to the end of the day and all you want to do is zone out, in front of the TV, in front of your phone, in front of whatever, you did too much that day. We can have too much on our plate. We can have too much. Like that's how it is for a projector. We're here to guide. We're not necessarily here to do as much. So it's getting clear on what are the things or thing that you see projector so clearly. That you're like, oh, it's so obvious that people should do things this way, because we're here to improve things. We're here to make things better. We're here to refine. We're here to take a process that likely a manifestor created and say, how can I tune this up? How can I make this better? How can I improve this? How can I make this more efficient for everybody else? That's what we're here to do. We're not necessarily here to do a lot because we don't have the sustainable energy to do it. So think of yourself as like a bird in the tree, right? We are here to guide. We can see all the other animals and we can give them guidance of, hey, this is how you can get to where you want to go faster, or what you want to do quicker. All the other types tend to need to come to projectors over the course of their life in order for them to get guidance, to see where to go. We have great advice. We have great guidance. We have a genius that's here to be put out into the world. We have the ability to see others so clearly. It's what takes so much energy, actually. Our auras go into the other person so that we can see them so clearly. And we're like, oh, well, duh, you just need to do X, Y, Z. However, we don't have the ability to see ourselves clearly. That doesn't mean you can't know yourself. That doesn't mean you can't be self-aware. It means that when you're coming up against an obstacle or when you're like looking for advice, you likely can't see it for yourself. And that's how it's meant to be for you. We're not meant to see it. It's that we can't turn our aura into ourselves. We can only put it into others. And so it's so important to know yourself so deeply so that you can understand when you're coming up against that wall, and then have the people in your life that you trust and that you can go to, and that's going to give you the true, honest guidance for your highest good, and not somebody who's just going to say, oh, you're so great, you don't need anything, you're doing it all perfect, what are you talking about? Not helpful, right? You need somebody who's going to tell you in a very nice way, because we're also super sensitive. We take things very personally. Say, hey, this is what I see. And so what becomes really true, or what becomes really important for us, is that our strategy for a projector is to wait for an invitation. We're not meant to go out and freely share our advice and guidance without somebody saying, hey, I would like to sign up for that. Hey, I would like to hear more. Hey, can you give me advice on this? We need actual invitations in order for our guidance, our advice, our feedback to land. How many times, for all the projectors here, have you been called a smarty pants or bossy or know-it-all, or somebody just gets upset when you give them advice, or they don't hear you and they come back 2 weeks later and say, so-and-so gave me the best advice? You're like, I'm sorry, what? I gave you that advice 2 weeks ago. You're like, no, you didn't. I can tell you what you were wearing, where we were at, what was going on in the world when I gave you this advice. So whatever, right? That is us. That's us out of alignment. We're not meant to be that way at all. We have to wait for people to come to us and say, I want more. This can be a follower on social media. This can be somebody emailing you, signing up for something of yours. It can be somebody asking you. It can be somebody calling you. It can literally also be nothing. It can just be somebody looking at you and you guys are so connected that you know that says, I need help, and that you can go over there and give it. And the best thing too for other people supporting projectors, to invite us as much as possible, because we tend to need a lot of invitations in order for things to freely be open. So I know for me, I've had neighbors invite me to dinner, or like to come over for a barbecue or something. And I would say, oh, what time? Like whatever. And they're like, oh, just come over whenever. That's like one of the most stressful statements that you can give me as like a projector, of like, oh yeah, just like come over whenever. I'm like, but wait, when is whenever? Like when is that? How? Oh, wait, what? And I didn't go. And they're like, oh, why? Like, what happened? Why didn't you show up? I'm like, I didn't know when to come over. I like stressed out about it. I overthought it and I just didn't do it. I'm like, I need you to invite me the day of and tell me when it's happening. And they're like, okay, got it. Like, we'll do it next time. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's all I need. Otherwise, I'm not coming. It just isn't happening. And so the more we can genuinely invite a projector, the better. If you're like, oh gosh, like you're exasperated by it, then don't invite us. Like that's the last thing we need. Okay, so projectors, we tend to need to wait longer than a generator or a manifesting generator, because they just need something that happens in the outside world, whether it be a question or something, for their body to say yes to. Where we actually need somebody to say, hey, I want more of this, or hey, can you tell me more about this, or hey, like I need to, can you come collaborate with me? We need more of an actual invitation. So what do we do while we're waiting? We don't stop life, right? We don't stop action. We do us. And the best thing you can do, projector, is to recognize yourself. If you don't recognize yourself for what you're here to do and what you're good at and what comes so easy to you, then it's likely that others aren't going to see it either. So you have to recognize yourself. If you're like, I'm a projector, I'm doing the things, I'm showing up and but I'm not getting invites. Do you recognize yourself for what you're here to do? Do you recognize yourself for your genius or for what you're good at? because we're meant to recognize ourselves for our genius. That's what we're here to do. And if you're like, I don't know what the F my genius is, great. Who are those people that you can go to say, hey, what obstacle am I coming up against? Those are the same people you can go to and say, what comes easy to me? What is it that you see that is like, I'm so good at that I don't even like, that I take for granted, likely. That is part of your genius. And depending on other things in your chart, this is where you just get to start to explore and see what works, see what feels good. And I can tell you, projectors, and really any type, but you don't even have to put something out in the world in order for you to get an invitation for it. I had been thinking about doing a program for coaches, and I was just like, I like talked to a couple of people in a coaching group I was in about it, but like hadn't really done anything about it. Wasn't really sure what it was going to look like. And I had somebody reach out that I didn't know and was like, hey, would love to set up a call and talk about some things. And she invited me into her mastermind to be part of it as a human design person in her group. It's like, I'm sorry, what? Did you know I wanted to do this? And she's like, no, but I really want to add this to my group. So the invitations will come as soon as you recognize yourself. So that's the work you get to do. And one of my favorite things about us, I mean, it's my favorite and like, it's whatever, our not self theme. So if you look at the other types, their not self themes can be turned in on themselves, right? A manifestor can feel mad at themselves or feel irritated with themselves. A generator and a manifesting generator can also feel frustrated with themselves. A projector's not self theme, again, the thing that says you're out of alignment, you're out of design, is bitterness. Projectors are rarely bitter with themselves. It's all very external. This is why it can be very difficult to coach a projector who's not ready to be coached, because the way that bitterness can also show up as is, of course, resentment, but it's also looking at everybody else and being like, how are you getting it so wrong? What's wrong with you? Why don't you see that I'm getting it right? Why don't you recognize me for all of the things that I'm doing right and all the things you're doing wrong? Like, how can you get it so wrong? Like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you, right? These are all the things that come up with the projector. And also, we walk over to a bitterness ledge. And as we're walking over to it, say we're like upset with a person, we're not actually saying anything to them. We're walking over being like, they should know. They should know why I'm upset. They should know they did something wrong. They should know they need to do better. But all the while, we're walking, we're not saying anything, and then we jump off that ledge, and it can be really difficult to come back to it. So if you're a projector, if you can think of maybe a person that you jumped off that bitterness ledge for, that you're like, I can't trust them anymore. I don't really want them in my life. It doesn't really matter. I know I can think of a few. And I'm like, So for us, it's all about taking responsibility for our work, our place, our part of the bitterness. Did we even say anything about what was upsetting us? No? Okay, well then how can we expect somebody to know we were upset if we didn't actually say anything, or we didn't ask for help, or we didn't ask for support, whatever the thing is? We have to get really clear on what our part is, our responsibility. How did we play a part in our role in the bitterness and in jumping off the ledge? That becomes our job. And our signature is also very external. Our signature is success. So the best thing we can do first off is define what success looks like, feels like, sounds like for you. What is it? Does it look like? What does it sound like? For me, it's living in nature. It's having time freedom. It's having space. It's having the ability to rest in the middle of the day if I want to. I took a nap yesterday. It was amazing. What does all of that look like for you? Because it's just like rest doesn't always mean sleeping. Success doesn't always mean financial abundance. Yes, that can be part of it, but it's not going to be all of it. And then it's recognizing when these things show up in your life and you're like, oh, damn, look at this. Okay, cool. How can I lean more into that? How can I be more grateful for that? How can I really allow that to fill my life even more so that I can create more of it? Okay, that's projectors. And then reflectors. So reflectors are 1% of the population. Excuse me. They're 1% of the population. And just like manifestors and projectors, they don't have the ability to create sustainable energy. But unlike them, so reflectors are meant to be in the middle of a tribe, a collective, a community, a family, whatever the group of people is. They're meant to be in the middle of it, because then they reflect back to us how we're doing as a tribe, how we're doing as a collective, how we're doing as a family. Is the reflector thriving? Are they healthy? Are they excited? Are they participating within the group? Are they in the center of it? How are they doing? Or are they pulling away? Are they trying to get on the outskirts of it? Are they trying to get away from being in the middle and like distancing themselves? Are they trying not to participate and to be involved? Are they ill? Are they depressed? These are all great indicators that get to tell us how we're doing. Oh, they're fighting with everybody. Okay, well, this environment is likely not a great environment. And they're reflecting that back to us. One of the things with a reflector, because they are the only type that can truly put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So their body graph, their centers, their shapes within their chart are all white. And the white centers within our chart, the white shapes within our chart are called undefined. And those are the places we take in the outside world and others and experience them. So reflectors do that in all 9 centers. So they truly can understand somebody to the deepest of the deep. But because of that, they can also feel lost. Like people don't see them for who they truly are. They only see a reflection of themselves because they essentially reflect us back to us. And so they don't feel like they're accepted or liked or loved for who they truly are. It's that this understand, like, oh, it feels like they love themselves reflected through me versus they love who I truly am. And so for the rest of us, for a reflector, the best thing we can do is to really dive in with them and understand who they are underneath it all. But the first step is for them to truly understand that they're taking in everybody else's stuff so that they can start to put things in place so that they can start to understand what's theirs and what's not. So they can say, oh, that's not mine. Cool. Great. That's somebody else's. I didn't want to deal with that anyway. So great. Somebody else gets to work with that. And they get to put it off to the side and say, I'm not picking up that story today. I'm not picking up any of that today. That gets to be somebody else's. And they get to step more and more into being who they truly are and less of only being a reflection of somebody else. But it's also really important for them to not shut down all of their stuff, whether it's emotions or fears or anxieties or whatever, because that will then again manifest in different physical ailments and illnesses and different things throughout their body. And so reflectors, their strategy is essentially the way they make decisions. So their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle. I mean, we talked about emotional authority, needing to wait 24 hours, which is like a difficult thing in this day and age. Think about a poor reflector who is meant to wait 28 days in before making a decision or finding the clarity within that part of it. And so we have to give them space. And because of this, they tend to give up their decision-making power to somebody else and say, you make the decisions. But then they find themselves constantly disappointed, which is their not self theme, because the decision that was made for them isn't exactly what they wanted. But they're meant to kick off when there's like this decision to be made for them, they kick off this cycle of clarity. And during this cycle, they're meant to reach out to people, ask questions, read up on things, research, and through that process, find the clarity they're looking for. So it may be that they find it within 10 days. It may be that they find it in 35 days. It just kind of depends. So where the rest of the types are all very connected to the sun, reflectors are very connected to the moon. So just as the moon reflects the sun, so do reflectors reflect the rest of us. And so again, the best thing we can do for reflectors is to they need space. So reflectors, if you don't have a space for yourself somewhere in your house, please create that for yourself, because you need that in order to discharge all of the energy, all of the things that you've taken on from other people out of your body. So you can reset yourself and come back to who you truly are. And and then use the space. Allow yourself to have that. Come back to it. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a bunch of rest. You may, but it's more about you giving yourself what you truly need so that you can flourish in the way that you need to. And your not self, then, like I said, is disappointment, which can look like feeling like low levels of depression, feeling a lack of joy and play, and just feeling ill, being sick all the time. And your signature is surprise and delight. It's just having this joy. It's being surprised by who you are every day, because you're not meant to be the same person every day. You are highly influenced by your environment, your physical environment, as well as your people environment. They're going to dictate who you are that day. They get to pull out the different versions of who you are depending on where you're at. So it becomes so important for you to understand how you feel within a physical environment and within a people environment, because that's going to dictate, that's going to show you where you're meant to go. If you don't feel good, it's time to go. If you feel great, it's time to just like dig in and like let yourself really feel it. But you have to understand how you feel in an environment so that you can allow yourself and give yourself the permission to course correct as you go. So I hope this was helpful. I think it was a little bit longer than I was anticipating. So apologies for the length. But if you guys are interested in learning more about your energy type, I offer sessions and readings, and I also have energy type workbooks and videos on my website. So you're always welcome to check those out. You can find those at in the link in my bio, but also my website is www.connected-consciousness.com. And you'll go to the shop and they're all there. And I have another workshop coming up on Monday, on June 7th, where we're going to really go into, I kind of alluded to some of those centers, and we're really going to dive into those centers and really being able to discern through what is yours and what is somebody else's. So really starting to understand yourself at a much deeper level. So that's on Monday if you are wanting to join us. And otherwise, I hope you guys have an amazing